To understand Count Dooku, you have to go back to the very beginning. Before the dark side, before the separatists, before Darth Tyranus ever existed. Dooku was born into one of the most prestigious noble families in the entire galaxy, House Sereno, rulers of the planet Sereno. But despite his noble birth, he was identified as Force-sensitive at an incredibly young age and was taken from his family to be trained as a Jedi. And not just trained by anyone. Count Dooku became the personal Padawan of Grand Master Yoda himself, one of the only two Jedi in record history that Yoda personally took under his wing. That alone tells you everything about how exceptional Dooku was. Yoda didn't train just anyone. He saw something in Dooku that he rarely saw in others. Raw potential, exceptional intelligence, and an incredibly powerful connection to the Force. Dooku rose throughout the Jedi ranks faster than almost anyone of his generation. He became one of the most respected, most skilled, and most powerful Jedi Masters the Order has ever produced. His lightsaber skills were legendary, a master of Form 2, the most elegant and redefined dueling form ever developed. A style so precise, so calculated, so sophisticated, that it perfectly reflected the man himself. But here's what most people don't talk about. Dooku didn't just train under Yoda. He went on to train his own Padawan, and that Padawan was none other than Qui-Gon Jinn. Think about what that means for a second. Dooku trained Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon trained Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan trained Anakin. The entire Skywalker lineage, the lineage that ultimately determined the fate of the galaxy, traces directly back to Count Dooku. He wasn't just a background character in Star Wars history. He was at the very center of it. But even at the height of his power, as a Jedi Master, something was brewing beneath the surface. Dooku was never fully comfortable within the Jedi Order. He asked questions others were afraid to ask. He challenged decisions others were afraid to challenge. He saw things others refused to see. And what he saw troubled him deeply. So what exactly did Count Dooku see that troubled him so deeply? The truth. While most Jedi were content serving the Republic without question, Dooku was paying attention. And what he saw was a Republic rotting from the inside out. A Senate consumed by corruption, greed, and political self-interest. Politicians who care more about power than the people they were supposed to represent. A system so broken that justice had become almost impossible to achieve. And the Jedi, the supposed guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy, were doing nothing about it. That's what truly broke Dooku's fate. Not the Republic's corruption alone, but the Jedi Order's willingness to ignore it, to play politics, to sit on their council in their ivory tower on Coruscant while the galaxy suffered around them. He tried to warn them. He raised his concerns within the Order. He questioned their decisions, challenged their complacency, and pushed for change. But the Council didn't want to hear it. They dismissed his concerns, ignored his warnings, and continued serving a government that was fundamentally corrupt. And here's the most painful part. Everything Dooku warned them about came true. Every single thing. The Republic did fall. The Senate did become an instrument of tyranny. The Jedi were blindsided by a threat they should have seen coming. Order 66 happened. The Empire rose. Everything Dooku predicted with painful accuracy came to pass. And the Jedi were too proud and too blind to listen when it still could have made a difference. So Dooku made a decision that only 19 other Jedi in recorded history had ever made before him. He walked away. He voluntarily left the Jedi Order, becoming one of the lost 20. 20 Jedi Masters throughout all of history who had renounced their membership in their order. Not expelled, not fallen, they chose to leave. And Dooku joining that list tells you something crucial. He wasn't angry, he wasn't emotional, he wasn't reacting impulsively. He was making a calculated, principled decision based on years of careful observation and genuine conviction. He returned to his home planet of Sereno and reclaimed his title as Count, a nobleman once again after a lifetime of serving an order he no longer believed in. But Dooku leaving the Jedi Order wasn't the end of his story, it was the beginning of his greatest mistake. After leaving the Jedi Order, Dooku found himself at a crossroads. He had his title, he had his wealth, he had his planet, but he also had something far more dangerous. A burning conviction that the galaxy needed to change, and absolutely no legitimate way to change it. That's when Darth Sidious came calling. Palpatine had been watching Dooku for years. He understood him perfectly. He knew exactly what Dooku wanted. A better galaxy, free from the corruption of the Republic. And he knew exactly how to use that desire against him. Palpatine approached Dooku not with promises of power or wealth. Dooku already had those things. He approached him with something far more seductive. A plan. A unique, carefully constructed plan to tear down the corrupt Republic and rebuild the galaxy from scratch. And to a man like Dooku, brilliant, principled, generally idealistic despite everything, that was an offer impossible to refuse. So Dooku accepted. He became Darth Tyranus, Darth Sidious' second Sith apprentice, following in the footsteps of Darth Maul. And here is where Count Dooku becomes one of the most fascinating and tragic figures in all of Star Wars. Because unlike Anakin Skywalker, who fell to the dark side out of fear and desperation, Dooku turned for ideology. He genuinely believed he was doing the right thing. He wasn't consumed by hatred or rage. He wasn't broken by personal loss. He made a cold, calculated, rational decision that the ends justified the means, that tearing down a corrupt system, even though violence, even though war, and even though the dark side itself was worth it, if the result was a better galaxy. That makes him fundamentally different from almost every other Sith Lord in Star Wars history. Most Sith want power for power's sake. Dooku wanted power to achieve something. There's a crucial difference, and that difference is exactly what makes his story so compelling and so tragic at the same time. But here's what Dooku didn't fully understand in that moment. Palpatine never shared his vision. Palpatine didn't want a better galaxy. He didn't want reform. He didn't want justice. He wanted one thing and one thing only: absolute power over everything. And Dooku, for all his brilliance, for all his wisdom, for all his decades of experience, he was being used as a tool to get it. The most intelligent man in almost every room he ever walked into couldn't see that he was being played. And that tragedy, that painful, devastating irony follows Count Dooku all the way to his death. As Darth Tyranus, Count Dooku became the most dangerous political and military architect the galaxy had ever seen. While Palpatine quickly manipulated the Republic from the inside, Dooku was doing something equally extraordinary on the outside. He was building an army. Not just any army. The Confederacy of Independent Systems. Thousands of star systems, hundreds of planets, entire civilizations that had grown tired of the Republic's corruption and incompetence. Dooku didn't just recruit them, he inspired them. He gave them a cause, a legitimate grievance that resonated across the galaxy. And here's what makes this so remarkable. He wasn't entirely wrong. The systems that joined the Separatists had real reasons to be angry at the Republic. Real injustices, real grievances that had been ignored for decades. Dooku understood that and used it masterfully. But his role in the Clone Wars went even deeper than leading the Separatists. Think about this carefully. Dooku was secretly working with Palpatine, who controlled the Republic, which means Dooku was simultaneously leading both sides of the war. The Clone Wars wasn't a conflict between two opposing forces fighting for different visions of the galaxy. It was a performance, a carefully orchestrated galaxy-wide performance designed by Palpatine and executed by Dooku to achieve one single goal: give Palpatine the justification he needed to dismantle the Republic and declare himself Emperor. And Dooku played his role perfectly. On the battlefield, he was terrifying, a lightsaber duelist so skilled that even the greatest Jedi of the era struggled against him. Obi-Wan Kenobi, one of the most capable Jedi of his generation, fought Dooku multiple times and lost or barely survived every single encounter. Even Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, the most powerful Force user of his era, needed years of development before he could finally defeat Dooku. Let that sink in for a moment. The man who trained Qui-Gon Jinn, the former Padawan of Grand Master Yoda, a lightsaber master without an equal, a political genius, a military commander of the highest order. This was Count Dooku at the height of his power during the Clone Wars. But alongside his military campaigns, Dooku was also building his own personal arsenal of agents and assassins, most notably Asajj Ventress, a dark side assassin he trained personally who became one of the most feared figures of the Clone Wars era. And General Grievous, the cyborg commander of the Separatist droid armies. Dooku didn't just recruit Grievous, he personally trained him in lightsaber combat, teaching a non-force sensitive being to fight like a Jedi, using 4 arms simultaneously. That's the level of strategic thinking Dooku operated at. Always 10 steps ahead, always building, always planning. But here's the question that haunted Dooku throughout the entire Clone Wars. Did he know he was being used? The answer is complicated. Dooku knew Palpatine's plan involved deception. He knew the Clone Wars was manufactured. He knew innocent people were dying on both sides for political agenda. But what he didn't fully accept, what he couldn't bring himself to believe, was that he himself was just another piece of Palpatine's board. He thought he was his partner. He was the pawn. And the moment Anakin Skywalker became powerful enough, Dooku's time was running out. By the time the Clone Wars entered its final days, Count Dooku had served Darth Sidious faithfully for over a decade. He had built the Separatist movement from nothing. He had fought the Jedi across countless battlefields. He had sacrificed everything: his reputation, his honor, his connection to the light side of the Force, all in service of a plan he believed would ultimately make the galaxy better. And Palpatine rewarded that decade of loyalty and sacrifice with a single order: kill him. It happened aboard the Invisible Hand, the Separatist flagship, high above the skies of Coruscant. Dooku had captured Chancellor Palpatine, or so he believed. In reality, Palpatine had allowed himself to be captured. It was all part of the plan. Obi-Wan and Anakin fought their way throughout the ship to rescue the Chancellor, and when they finally confronted Dooku, Palpatine watched from his chair. The fight was extraordinary. Two of the greatest warriors of the Clone Wars era clashing in the halls of a capital ship. But this time, something was different. Anakin had grown. The gap between them had finally closed. Dooku fought brilliantly, but Anakin overwhelmed him, disarmed him, brought him to his knees, and then Palpatine spoke. Kill him. In that moment, kneeling on the floor, defenseless, looking up to the man he had served for over a decade, Count Dooku finally understood. He wasn't a partner. He wasn't an ally. He wasn't never going to rule alongside Palpatine. He was always going to end up exactly here, on his knees, discarded the moment something more useful came along. Anakin hesitated. He knew killing a defenseless prisoner was wrong. The Jedi Corps forbade it. Everything he had been taught screamed at him to stop. But Palpatine kept pushing. And Anakin, driven by his own fears, his own desperation, his own dark impulses, brought the place down. Count Dooku, Jedi Master, former Padawan of Yoda, teacher of Qui-Gon Jinn, Count of Sereno, Tyranus, died on his knees, betrayed by the man he trusted most, killed by the student of his own Padawan, without ever getting the chance to say a single word in his own defense. There's something almost unbearably tragic about that ending. Here was a man of extraordinary intelligence, extraordinary skill, and generally complex motivations, reduced to a plot device, a stepping stone for Anakin's fall to the dark side. Star Wars gave us one of the most fascinating characters and then threw him away in the first 20 minutes of Revenge of the Sith. Count Dooku deserved better. Count Dooku's story in the movies is tragically short, 20 minutes in Attack of the Clones and a handful of scenes in Revenge of the Sith, gone before most casual fans ever got the chance to truly understand him. But if you watch the Clone Wars animated series, the full picture of Count Dooku is significantly darker, significantly more complex, and significantly more tragic than anything the movies showed you. And most Star Wars fans have absolutely no idea. Let's start with Asajj Ventress. In the movies, Ventress doesn't even exist, but in the Clone Wars, she is one of the most important characters connected to Dooku, a dark side assassin he personally trained and deployed against the Jedi throughout the war. But here's what makes her relationship so fascinating. Dooku genuinely invested in Ventress. Beyond just using her as a weapon, he saw real potential in her. Someone who could grow powerful enough to stand alongside him as a true dark side warrior. And then Palpatine intervened. Sidious saw Ventress becoming too powerful, too dangerous, a potential threat to the rule of two. So he gave Dooku an ultimatum: eliminate Ventress or face consequences. And Dooku, the man who had already sacrificed everything for Palpatine's plan, betrayed her. He sent an entire fleet to destroy her. Pause and think about what that moment reveals about Dooku. Here was a man who genuinely cared about someone beyond pure political calculation, who genuinely invested in someone's potential, and then sacrificed her for the moment Palpatine demanded. The same way Palpatine would eventually sacrifice him. Dooku did to Ventress exactly what Palpatine did to Dooku. He became the very thing that destroyed him. That parallel is one of the most devastating pieces of Star Wars storytelling ever created. And it's completely canon. It happened, and most people who call themselves Star Wars fans have never seen it. But the Clone Wars goes even deeper than Ventress. After betraying Ventress on Palpatine's orders, Dooku needed a new weapon, so he turned to the brother of Darth Maul, Savage Opress, a warrior of terrifying physical power who Dooku trained personally in the dark side. But even with Savage Press, Dooku was never truly investing in a successor. He was building a weapon. Because here's what the Clone Wars reveals about Dooku that the movies never showed. He was simultaneously serving Palpatine while quickly, carefully, secretly positioning himself for the moment he could break free. Count Dooku never fully surrendered himself to Palpatine's vision. He maintained his own agenda, his own calculation, his own long game, running parallel to everything Palpatine had planned. The layer of deception Dooku was operating on simultaneously are almost impossible to comprehend. Deceiving the Jedi, deceiving the Republic, deceiving the Separatists, and quickly, carefully working to eventually deceive Palpatine himself. Nobody in Star Wars history was playing chess at that level. Nobody. And yet, despite all of it, he still lost. Because Palpatine had anticipated everything. Every move Dooku made, every calculation he ran, every contingency he prepared, Palpatine had already seen it coming and already prepared his answer. Anakin Skywalker. The moment Anakin became powerful enough, Dooku's role in Palpatine's plan was complete. His purpose fulfilled. His usefulness expired. And in Legends, the expanded universe of novels and comics beyond the Clone Wars, Dooku's story gets even darker. Hints of his consciousness reaching beyond death. Secret networks he had built against Palpatine that never got the chance to activate. A man who even in his final moments refused to accept that everything he had worked for had ended in complete and total failure. A Jedi Prodigy who became a Sith Lord. A revolutionary who became a pawn. A genius who was outsmarted by the one person smarter than him. A man who did to others exactly what was done to him. Count Dooku's complete story across the movies, the Clone Wars, and Legends is one of the greatest tragic character studies in all of Star Wars. It deserved to be told on the big screen. Instead, we got 20 minutes in Revenge of the Sith. Star Wars has never fully reckoned on with what it wasted in Count Dooku, but today we did. Count Dooku, a name that most Star Wars fans associate with a secondary villain, a placeholder antagonist who showed up, lost a hand, and got killed in the first 20 minutes of Revenge of the Sith. But now you know the truth. He was never just a villain. He was a Jedi Prodigy trained by Yoda himself, a master who shaped the lineage that produced Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker, a man who saw the corruption of the Republic with perfect clarity decades before anyone else was willing to admit it. He was a revolutionary who chose the wrong path to achieve the right goal, a genius who was betrayed by the one person he trusted, a Sith Lord who did to his own apprentice what exactly did his master to him, and never fully realized the devastating parallel until it was too late. Count Dooku wasn't evil for the sake of being evil. He was a man who believed, genuinely, deeply, passionately believed, that he could fix a broken galaxy. And he was wrong. Not because his diagnosis was incorrect, but because the cure he chose was worse than the disease. That is the tragedy of Count Dooku. Not that he fell to the dark side, but that he felt all the right reasons and paid for it with everything. His reputation, his honor, his connection to the light, his students, his allies, his plans, his life. All of it gone. In service of a man who never once saw him as anything more than a tool. Star Wars has given us many tragic characters over the decades. Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ahsoka Tano, Qui-Gon Jinn, but none of them, not a single one, carries the specific weight of Count Dooku's tragedy, because none of them were as smart as him, and none of them were as strong as him. At the same time, that's what makes him unforgettable. That's what makes him one of the greatest characters Star Wars ever created. And that's what makes it one of the greatest tragedies in Star Wars history. That we never got to see his full story told the way it deserved to be told. If you made it this far, thank you. Generally, this is the kind of content I want to bring to this channel. Deep, detail, doing justice to the characters and stories that Star Wars sometimes takes for granted. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, drop a comment, tell me which Star Wars character you would like me to cover next, and subscribe if you haven't already, because this is just the beginning. The galaxy is big, and we have got a lot of stories left to tell. May the Force be with you, always.